Pastor here at Queen Street United Methodist Church in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. Welcome to our Wesley Bible class. Today we are going through chapters 23 and 24 of Joshua, which will end it. Okay, but before I get started, I want to talk to you about something technical, okay? I'm using the camera on my phone, and the camera on my phone is like me looking in a mirror. So when I point to something on this map back here, I want you to know this map is totally backwards. Okay. So I just want you to know that if you're confused about the way the Mediterranean looks and the way the Promised Land looks, that's not the way God promised it. That's backwards. Okay. But today we're going to be going through chapters 23 and 24, which are the last two chapters in Joshua, and they're instructive for us. There are some things that we can learn from these two chapters. All right, chapter 23. Joshua is going to exhort his people. Now, before Moses died, Moses, on several occasions, had speeches that he made to the people. And so Joshua, having assumed the role of Moses, is also going to have a big speech before he passes on, and he knows he's going to pass on. So here we go. A long time afterward, when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all their enemies all around, and Joshua was old and well advanced in years, Joshua summoned all Israel, their elders and heads, their judges and officers, and said to them, I am now old and well advanced in years, just like the writer said. Okay. And you have seen all that the Lord your God has done to all these nations for your sake. For it is the Lord your God who has fought for you. I have allotted to you as an inheritance for your tribes those nations that remain, along with all the nations that I have already cut off from the Jordan to the great sea in the west. The Lord will push them back before you and drive them out of your sight, and you shall possess their land as the Lord your God promised you. Therefore, be very steadfast and observe and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, turning aside from it neither to the right nor to the left, so that you may not be mixed with these nations left here among you, or make mention of the names of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow yourselves down to them, but hold fast to the Lord as you have done this day, for the Lord has driven out before you great and strong nations. And as for you, no one has been able to withstand you to this day. One of you puts to flight 1,000. Since it is the Lord your God who fights for you as he promised you. Be very careful, therefore, to love the Lord your God, for if you turn back and join the survivors of these nations left here among you, and intermarry with them, so that you may marry their women and they yours, know assuredly that the Lord your God will not continue to drive out these nations before you, but they shall be a snare and a trap for you, a scourge on your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land that the Lord your God has given you. All right. This is like reading the New York Times. You get a headline that says one thing, and then as you get into the story, you realize, wait a minute, that's not right. Okay? So here it starts out, a long time afterward, when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all the nations around. And here Joshua is saying, hey, you still got some people you got to kick out, okay? He was supposed to annihilate all the people of different races, and yet he's saying, they're in your midst. And they're still worshiping pagan gods. And if you don't watch out, you might too. Okay? So what we're looking at, well, the first sentence of this chapter says that the whole invasion and everything is complete. It's very obvious that it's not. So it makes you wonder sometimes, okay? But is there spin in the Bible? Oh, yes. Very much so, okay? So they have a headline, but then the body of the story tells you that this ain't over. And Joshua's not going to be able to keep up with them. Joshua's going to pass away, he knows it. So he's telling them that you have to keep the fight going, keep the fight going, keep the faith. You know, it's just exactly the kind of speech that you would expect from somebody who's moving out of the scene.
It's kind of like he expects them to
It's like
follow
Moses.
warnings as if, you are.
He's not as explicit as Moses. Moses said you will. Okay, Joshua says you might. All right?
We are on our own strength.
Yeah,
But with God,
yeah.
we'll get back at it.
Okay, so now he says, and now I'm about to go the way of all earth, and you know in your hearts and souls, all of you, that not one thing has failed of all the good things that the Lord your God promised concerning you. All have come to pass for you, for not one of them has failed. But just as all the good things that the Lord promised concerning you have been fulfilled, so the Lord will bring upon you all the bad things, until he has destroyed you from this good land that the Lord your God has given you. If you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God, which he enjoined on you, and go and serve other gods, and bow down to them, then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from the good land that he has given you. All right. Who's writing this, and who's using this? Who commissioned the book of Joshua? Come on, we've done this before. Who commissioned the book of Joshua?
Josiah?
No, Josiah is using the book of Joshua. Okay? But who commissioned it?
I thought it was Moses.
Who?
Moses.
No, Moses commissioned Joshua, but he didn't commission the book of Joshua.
Okay.
Okay? Who commissioned the book?
Use another word. What do you mean by commissioned?
Who paid for it?
Who
published it?
Of course somebody paid for it. People don't just sit down and write this stuff. Who could pay for it?
God.
King.
The king. Which king? David. Okay,
Oh, okay.
King David. So King David, the one who's committed genocide, has commissioned Joshua's people to commit genocide. They don't commit full genocide, okay? Because there are people still living in the land. There's still places to conquer. So they have not annihilated everybody.
Okay, let's go back.
Yeah, let's
That's
do
a little
go
bit
back.
fast for me.
All right.
So David has commissioned this book to be written.
Yes.
The
You're
genocide.
saying Joshua did not write the book of Joshua?
No. You can see because they're saying this is what Joshua said.
Oh,
So
okay.
someone else wrote it. David commissioned them to write it.
Yes.
So we're writing this for Joshua during his time, but actually during the time of David.
Yes.
So who's actually writing it?
Scribes. Court scribes.
The knowledge of,
Court recorders. Okay? And they're basing it on both the written and oral histories that have been passed down to them. Okay? So part of this is part of the national story. You know, it's just like most of us could talk about generally the history of the United States. We could talk about, well, there was a Revolutionary War, and then there was a Civil War, and and there was a time of slavery, and then there was not slavery, and we can generally go over the history of the country, and you better study fast because we're coming up on a big anniversary.
Of what?
But
Anniversary of what?
this country,
Oh, yeah.
How many years?
2026.
2026 is the 250th anniversary of the country. Study, Michelle, study.
I never did do this. It wasn't my thing.
Got some catching up to do. Okay.
I'm old now, I'm kind of learning interest.
All right. Well, anyway, David had this commissioned because he had to define what are the national boundaries of his kingdom. And so the book of Joshua lays out what are the national boundaries, not just the national boundaries that existed, but the national boundaries that they aspire to, because David is still fighting the Philistines, right?
Are they the ones that David commissioned the genocide to, the Philistines?
No, God commissioned the genocide
Through King David?
through,
I thought I heard you say King David did a while ago.
he did.
But,
He
okay,
committed
so
he
God-
committed genocide back in his history. He would go in and annihilate
Well, I wrote that
whole
wrong.
villages. Okay, so what you have are what are the national boundaries that they can claim, and what are the national boundaries that they aspire to. And that's what David is doing. He's also legitimizing his war because he's claiming their territory. Okay?
So as we go through this, and these things I've never heard before, about David writing Joshua and this and that.
Yeah.
So it makes me think, did God actually say, go in and annihilate everyone, or did someone just write that God said that?
I would hope not.
You would
Okay.
hope not.
It had to
Why?
be an
That God would commission an annihilation. As we have come through generations to understand the will of God better, we see that the will of God is not for destruction, it's for conversion, it's for blessing, it's for loving neighbors.
teaching.
Okay, it's really hard to say love your neighbor in the Pentateuch because you don't love your neighbor, you kill your neighbor. Okay, but we have come to know the love of God is about loving your neighbor, not killing them. So,
So are they saying in the Bible that God called them to do this,
yes,
to take the guilt from them? The
Yes.
burden of guilt from them?
exactly. That's why
Yeah,
every
religions are doing the
genocide has
same
been
thing.
commissioned by some deity.
There's a lot of religions today that are doing that in the name of their God.
Yes,
Okay, so in Joshua, he uses quotation marks. So why are they using quotation marks if Joshua didn't really say these things?
they're using quotation marks because they're saying Joshua did say these things. They quote him.
Did they write it down? Oh, let me get a pen and write that down right now while you're saying that.
Well, I don't know what their source, I don't know what source documents they're working from.
Right.
I just gonna
Okay.
argue with them. I'm gonna do that.
But you have to, yeah, but you have to understand that historians back then didn't follow the same rules that historians have to follow today in order to have any legitimacy. Historians back then could write anything that the king wanted.
You know, it really makes it hard for guys like us who just want to understand and do what's right. To understand, if you read this and you say, well, no, that didn't really happen, or it didn't happen this way. I mean, it even comes back, I don't want to chase this rabbit, but the whole homosexual thing. I mean, was that really written? Did God really say those things? Did those words come out, or did somebody just say he said that?
I can say that culturally, throughout the history of people who are recorded as God's people, including Christians, okay, that this has been a common understanding that a homosexual lifestyle is not consistent with the plan of God's creation.
What about slavery?
Well, why did he create them then?
So that we would raise the question.
I know I shouldn't go down this rabbit hole, but,
Yeah.
but I mean, really, it's hard to understand. And of course, the Methodist Church has gone through the whole deal. And you read the words, I mean, it's very explicit what it says. But then the people who don't agree with that say, well, it really didn't say that, or they didn't really do that. And now with the words you're coming up saying, well, Joshua really wasn't written by Joshua, it was written by David, it just puts a lot of doubt in everyone's mind, I would say, about, well, wait a minute,
Okay.
about
That's,
everything. That's
Yes.
About all of it.
yes, and that's why God gave you a brain. Okay? And
If you don't
that,
have the facts, you can't figure out what's right or wrong. You can have an opinion of what's right or wrong. But if I'm reading something and it's written and it's factual, then I can make a pretty good assumption of what is right or wrong.
yes,
But when I'm reading something and say, well, it may have been written by someone who was right, or it may have been written by someone who had an ulterior motive, then I don't know if what I'm reading is right or wrong.
that's correct.
But the
Okay, then
thing is,
answer
we
that.
have to put ourselves in the context of the time that this part was written.
Yes,
And one of the things that I've just recently read about the Romans is that they lived in sin.
yes,
And they married to have children. They did not marry to have sex for pleasure. They use the temple prostitutes.
Yeah, but who wrote that?
And true, and slave.
Who wrote that?
Paul wrote
Did
that.
David write
No,
that?
Paul wrote that. Paul wrote that.
Yeah, Roman society was, I mean, Roman society, Greek society,
I read the New Testament.
They were very libertine.
And
Because
so
I believe
what I
after
read was
Jesus, I
that
believe
they,
everything.
you know, they list all these sins, and along with that is the homosexual
Right.
part. But there's also all these other sins that are going on at the same time.
Yeah.
You can't take one out without taking all of them out.
correct.
That's true.
Yes. Okay, now, here's the dilemma that you run into if you take an unexamined look at the Old Testament.
There you go.
Okay? If you take an unexamined look at the Old Testament, there are several things that you get from this speech from Joshua. One, stealing territory from your neighbor is okay as long as you think God wants you to. Okay?
Doing what?
Still in territory.
Stealing your neighbor's property
Taking the land.
is okay as long as you think God told you to do that.
Baloney.
Okay, second,
I don't believe that.
you don't believe that? But that's what's in your Bible,
I don't tell
okay?
anybody to steal, because one of the commandments says, thou shalt not steal.
Okay, and these, okay, that's fine,
You
but
change the word
God,
from steal, just taking the land.
Take the land that God allotted you.
That's right.
I mean, that,
Right.
did he not allot that land to them?
if you talk to any pickpocket, they will tell you that when they went out and picked your pocket, as far as they were concerned, the money that was in your pocket belonged to them.
Oh, I see what you do. I see what you're saying.
Okay? I mean, that's
That's
the
true.
that is the mentality of a thief.
Right.
Okay? What you've got actually belongs to me. Okay? That's the primary premise of socialism, by the way. But that's one thing, is that it's okay not only to steal from your neighbor, but to kill them in the process. Okay? The second thing here is that if you hang around sinners, you're going to become a sinner.
Amen.
Okay?
I know.
On the other hand, Jesus ate with sinners and didn't become a sinner. So the other premise is that you can be among sinners and convert them. But the Old Testament says, if you hang around with sinners, you're going to become just like them. There is no incentive for people who consider themselves to be the only people of God to convert anybody. They have no use for the other people,
For Jesus.
and the only use that other people have is that they have stuff that you want.
And it's all about land.
It is all about land, cities,
Today,
property,
it's all about land.
loot, okay? That's all it's about. And God says it's okay to go ahead and loot them and kill them in the process. Okay? That's in Joshua. Yeah.
But it doesn't, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, the other thing is that there can be no cross marriage. Okay?
Mixed races.
How long, mixed races, how long has that plagued our culture?
Still today.
Yeah.
Still today?
But
Okay?
God knew that if you did that.
No, it's not new. It's not new.
No, I didn't say new. I said God knew, like no new.
Right.
God knew that once this happened, we were such weak creatures, we're gonna, instead of them coming to the way we believe, we're gonna believe what they do.
But if we have from everything that we believe is that we have the superior religion, why would we not have confidence that that religion would prevail?
Jesus.
Because everybody doesn't think like us.
Not yet. See, that's the thing. The New Testament perspective is they don't think like us yet.
Well, I
Well,
can
that's what
understand
we're
that
supposed to
point.
be doing right now. We are supposed to be doing what the disciples did and Paul did.
Yeah, and the disciples didn't go out and slaughter people.
No, they did
Okay,
not.
now,
But if you follow the whole scenario, you go back to Abraham.
mhm,
If Abraham really, if this really happened in the Bible,
yeah,
that God says, Abraham, I'm going to give you this land, the
Right.
land of the Canaanites, Canaan, whatever. And then Abraham went there, and then through different things he left, not by his own choice, so to speak, But so you could say, well, God gave that land to Abraham, and then these other people came in, and now God is saying, okay, this was your land that I promised you, so go in and clean it out and take the land back.
That was never Abraham's land. Abraham was a sojourner in the land. He was a nomad.
It says that God says, hey, Abraham, I'm going to give you this land.
Yes.
All your descendants will be like the stars of the skies and the sands and the whatever beach.
Right.
To this day.
So if that really happened, and God really said that, then the land was the Jewish people's land. And I can see that God would say, go in and take your land back. I gave Abraham that land. And if God is the supreme being that we all think he is, then I can rationale that they should have done what
God did not give that land to Abraham. God promised that land to Abraham.
Kind of the
In
same
other words,
thing.
Well,
promising
what's the
if
difference?
if he fulfilled his part of the promise?
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, is that what you're saying? If Abraham and his descendants fulfilled the part of the promise that they were supposed to fulfill?
Right.
So that
That-
same
that is-
thing promising
that is the whole-
their descendants got it, and so he did give it.
Yeah, God promised that land to Abraham's descendants. He did not promise the land to Abraham.
Yeah, but that's where I'm going, you know. So these are the tribes, or some of the tribes are Abraham's descendants.
But those people who were there didn't come in. Those people already were there. They were there before Abraham showed up. Okay? That was their land before Abraham started feeding them with his flocks and moved around like a nomad. Okay?
But you could say those people, just like
And Abraham was a property owner, but he bought the land. God didn't give him any of the land that Abraham claimed as his own.
but in the reading it did say, I promised this land to you.
Yes,
And, well, not to you, but to your descendants.
to your descendants.
And I mean, you could go back to like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Very
Well-
wicked, very cruel, wicked, cruel people. So maybe those people deserve to be wiped out.
Maybe.
And maybe these other nations that were in the promised land deserve to be wiped out.
Well, but if Abraham's descendants are committing genocide and stealing people's property, maybe they deserve to be wiped out.
Well, you've got Ishmael in there too.
I got Ishmael in there too. So I got, there's all that stuff. So, I mean, which culture is more sinful? Okay? If you define a sin as not a sin, but as a commission, then obviously everybody else's sin is worse. Now, we as Christians have to challenge what these people think God is telling them to do. I'm not saying that they didn't think that God was telling them to do this, okay? But our understanding of God is very different from their understanding of God. And you can't say that our understanding of God did not change as you go through the Bible. Okay, because you're going to have passages in Isaiah that Jesus quoted most of the time that negate this mindset that you find in the Pentateuch. So when you start getting into the area of the prophets and the things that the prophets are telling people to do, generally speaking, you're going to find something that is becoming more aligned with a New Testament understanding than a Pentateuch understanding.
What were you gonna say, Sandra?
The Lexham Bible Dictionary gives Joshua authorship in the beginning of the book, but maybe not in the end.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that the people who wrote the whole book had access to documents and oral traditions. Okay? David needed this book in order to define the boundaries, because in Moses, all you have is a promise, a general promise. You're going to take Canaan, whatever that is, okay? But in Joshua, you actually get tribal boundaries, You know, you have your sub-states, your counties per se, okay? Because this thing's only the size of New Jersey, you know, really. So you're looking at tribal areas that are counties within New Jersey. You're getting what's on the West Bank and what's on the East Bank. So you're getting territorial definitions in Joshua that David needs to define his kingdom, okay? Now, Josiah picks this up well after David, after the Assyrians have carried off the northern tribes. And here Josiah is trying to reclaim that territory, okay? And Josiah is also trying to get the people back to their original understanding of what their focus is on, who God is and how they're supposed to worship God. Also, Josiah is trying to, as David did, trying to centralize the government of his kingdom, which at that point was just, you know, a couple of tribal areas. So what you're seeing here is this book is being used to define and then to redefine the nation. It is a very useful book, and the warnings that you have from Joshua that if you start being pagan, that God's going to take all this stuff from you. Well, that was a reality in Josiah's day, and so, you know, he's using those warnings as a reason for his reforms. This is why he's going in, destroying all the pagan temples and high places and killing all the pagan priests and, you know, making it a death penalty to worship other gods and stuff in his territory. Josiah had a very harsh Reformation project going on. He was purging
And
the
he was
country.
for God, not against.
Well,
He was the
yeah,
8-year-old king, wasn't he?
he started out young, yeah. But when he came of age, he started doing these reforms. And they were brutal.
They are.
They were brutal. But Joshua is advocating brutality. He's advocating brutality. So just what, you know, when you start reading this, you have to understand that there were geopolitical things that were going on and religious things that were going on back in that day that required some drastic action. And if you're going to have drastic action, you've got to have drastic rhetoric and drastic justifications for the way you're going to go about this. Okay. Now we have kind of a Reformation thing going on now, where we're trying to reclaim law and order in certain parts of the country, and some people think that the technique is too harsh, and so we're still having these discussions. Okay, and it is important for us to be able to have two sides to look at. Okay, but if we want to carry this reclamation too far, you can use these texts in the Old Testament as a justification for just about anything you want to do. And we don't want to go that far. We don't want to go that far, okay? And I don't think we're going that far. But it's just, if people want to carry this to the nth degree, then, and they use a biblical analogy for doing it, that's where Christians have to step in and say, wait a minute, okay? So it's informative to us because these are dynamics that are still ongoing, okay? And you're going to see these kind of dynamics like this that are ongoing in Britain. There are dynamics that are going on right now in Eastern Europe, formerly Soviet areas of Europe. Dynamics that are going on culturally within France. You're seeing, and Britain also, where you have a culture that is not traditionally Christian, has begun to overwhelm the host country. And there are people in the host country who say, wait a minute, we have to go back to who we are as a Western civilization. So this dynamic tension is still going on. But if you go back to the Pentateuch for your techniques, then watch out. Because You can justify near about anything with the Bible. Okay?
That's true.
That's true, because you don't have all the background.
Yes.
You just have what's
And that's,
here.
and that's why I think it's important for us to understand the background of what's going on here.
Right.
What are the dynamics that caused a king to come up with this type of a history of the nation, where there is no conversion? Okay? It's just either or. Okay? And,
But the whole point is really, not really, but yeah. This whole Old Testament is leading us to Jesus.
Yes.
Who is the only one that can make all this right.
Amen.
the Old Testament says, don't blend. Jesus says, blend.
But as you said, the Old
His
Testament
people
was
into
not sharing their faith with other people.
Correct.
Whereas Jesus is sharing his faith.
Correct.
And wanting people to turn from their ways.
Yes.
And be like
All
him.
people.
Jesus says, blend, don't kill them, don't steal their stuff, okay? Convert
Don't be
them,
like them, just
okay?
serve them.
Convert them, but not perforce.
And so you can see why they had a hard time converting people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Now, I don't
absolutely.
consider it true conversion if you're doing it out of pure TQ.
That's correct. That's correct. But we do have right
I
now,
had a problem with Jesus.
huh?
I can see why the Jews had a problem with Jesus.
Absolutely.
They were against everything they'd ever been
Yes,
told.
that's
Oh,
why,
okay.
that's why when he came to his hometown and preached, they were ready to throw him off a cliff, because he brought up this very issue.
Uh-huh.
He said of all the women
It's
who
like
were
how
who were
very-
starving during the famine, who did Elijah go to? He went to some Gentile woman, okay? And of all the people that he could have cured of leprosy, who does he cure? This Assyrian general, for crying out loud. And the people in the synagogue said, this boy belongs off a cliff. And they, their staff parish committee got together and about to throw him out.
That must be like Jesus said on that cross, God, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah, I think mostly he was talking about the soldiers. I don't know if he was talking about the Sanhedrin.
Oh, I would like to hear about everybody that was.
He had some bad things to say about the Sanhedrin, if you look at Psalm 22. Okay, so anyway, that's kind of where we're going with this, and we didn't get to chapter 24, which is fairly lengthy, but that's okay. I mean, these are important issues for us, and if you're just taking your guidance from the Old Testament, you have to throw out Jesus.
Well, why include
I can't
the
do
Old
that.
Testament?
He's stuck.
I
I'm stuck on
mean,
him.
Jesus was totally against everything in the Old Testament.
No, Jesus said the law is good. He said, I didn't come to destroy the law, I came to fulfill it. Okay?
But you
Jesus was basing just about everything he ever said on Old Testament passages. So understand, Jesus did not throw out the Old Testament. He didn't throw out the Old Testament, but he certainly had a different view of what God was trying to accomplish. And he wasn't really satisfied with the techniques that were being used at the time.
But was there any other technique to use with those people?
Yeah, the same techniques. I mean,
With the
we
Old
live-
Testament people?
Yeah, of course. Okay, drop back. Go to originals. I always say, go to the original meaning, the original commission. Okay? In addition to promising Abraham that his descendants would inherit the land, he also said that your descendants, through your descendants, all the nations of the world will be blessed. Okay? This is not them blessing other nations. This is them destroying other nations. Okay? Jesus says we need to go back to the people of God are here to be a blessing to other nations, to teach them a better way of life, to show them how beneficial the law is to all humanity.
Right.
Okay? That's what the original commission was. But if you take a look at genocidal methods of taking what God promised, okay, then you're not blessing anybody.
But did they even know how to bless anybody?
No,
That's the point I'm making. They didn't know that. This was what they knew.
this is what they knew because this is the world that they lived in.
Right.
The world that they lived in was incredibly brutal. But I have to tell you that the world today is incredibly brutal.
It is.
Okay? And not only is it incredibly brutal, but we're getting really good at it.
Tomorrow, 10 times over.
Yeah, we are getting really good at being brutal. I mean, the people in general. Okay? You take a look at what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in Gaza and the brutality that we have seen
It's horrible.
is horrible, okay? But this is the kind of brutality that is advocated in the Pentateuch and in Joshua. And we look at it with horror today. What's the difference? Today, we look at it with horror. Back then, they just thought this is the way things are done. Okay? We have moved ahead. We have humanity generally is getting a much better understanding of what is right and what is wrong. Okay? That some things are acceptable and some things are not. And even though the things that are not acceptable may seem like they're prevailing, we still don't agree with them, even though it would appear that God is on the side of the people who are being brutal. Okay? God is not on the side of the people who are being brutal. Back then, they understood that God was. So we have to move on. We have to move on. If we stay stuck in this, Christianity is going to be a pretty ugly religion.
Amen to that.
Okay? So that's why I'm bringing up context and history and understanding of the cultural differences that exist between now and then. And that's why I have no problem looking within this and saying, oh, the Ten Commandments. Sounds like a good thing to me. Okay? The initial covenant with Abraham looks like a good thing to me. Okay? But God didn't say, when God says, I'm going to give this land to you and to your descendants, okay, He didn't tell them the technique. It could have been very different.
Tell me something.
Yeah.
Do you think that are the Israelites still bombing and doing things that are
They must.
keeping the war going?
They must.
Is that okay?
Yes. Because they are defending themselves. They are defending themselves. And they are not
Oh, it is.
They are not
I see
committing
pictures of
genocide, they are not
starving
committing
people.
genocide, and they are not purposely starving anybody like Hamas is. So Israel is being accused of things that they are not doing.
Okay.
Israel's being accused of things that their enemies are doing,
Gotcha.
okay? I mean, I watch this stuff pretty closely.
Me too.
You know, this is kind
700
of,
Club.
yeah, this is kind of where I come from. Not Israel, but from a military background, an intelligence background. I start looking at some of these things, and I see what's coming out of the UN, and I mean, the UN is Hamas. You know, it just is. Anyway, well, we'll pick up chapter 24. I thought we'd be done with Joshua today. We're going to get to the Wild West, but no. Okay. See you next week.
I enjoyed that news.